If you decide to retire at age 55, how does that affect your CPP, Canadian Pension Plan, and when you should start collecting it? In this video, I'll discuss how retiring early impacts the amount of CPP you receive, and then we'll look at a few scenarios using our financial planning software to see whether you should start CPP at 60 if you're retiring earlier, or if it makes sense to wait all the way till 70 or somewhere in between. So let's quickly talk about how CPP, again, the Canadian Pension Plan, is calculated and the impact of retiring early. So CPP is based on how many years you contribute into it and the amount of earnings that you have in those years that you are contributing. So the more you make and the more years you pay into it, obviously, the higher the Canadian Pension Plan you'll receive when you start to take it. Now, there's another part of how much you'll receive, and that is the timing on when you take it. So for any month before age 65 that you start collecting your Canadian Pension Plan, the amount will be reduced by 0.6% every month. So if you take it at age 60, it'll be reduced by 36%. On the flip side, if you delay your Canadian Pension Plan, for every month that you delay it past age 65, you get 0.7% more, or 8.4% a year. So if you delay it all the way till 70, you get 42% more. But here's a caveat. If you're going to retire early at age 55 and have zero earnings from 55 to 65, you have a lot more non-contributory years. Now, how the calculation works on how much you get at age 65, there is something called a dropout provision, meaning that years that you had zero or low income years will be dropped out of the calculation. But there's a limit to that, and that's 17% of the years you paid in, or roughly 8 years. So if you haven't paid from 55 to 65, that's 10 years, meaning that there's going to be years that you've had zero earnings that will count towards CPP, thus reducing the amount. And that doesn't consider years earlier in life that maybe you didn't earn anything, or maybe a lower amount or lower than YMPE, the maximum amount you can earn to pay into the max CPP. So again, you have more dropout years, and that will affect your Canadian Pension Plan. So again, we're going to jump into the software here in a second and look at the different scenarios and the real numbers and how it works on retiring earlier, and does that affect when you should take your Canadian Pension Plan to maximize the amount that you're going to receive, but also the overall amount that you're going to collect while you're in retirement. Now, the consensus thinking on this, and I know because I talk to hundreds of you every year that talk about retiring early, non-contributory years, I'm going to start my CPP at 60. And that's really what the consensus is most people that retire before 60 say, well, I have dropout years. I don't want the years from 60 to 65 to count as dropout years. So I'm just going to pull the pin early and take it at 60. Even though it's a reduced amount, it's not being further reduced because I have these years where I'm not paying into it. So again, for anyone retiring before age 60, a lot of you are thinking, most of you are thinking, well, I'm going to start it early. And that's why I think the average age of people that take CPP in Canada is age 62. And I think a lot of people wait till 65 or 70, but I think there's a really large portion of you, especially watching this video, that are retiring before 60 that don't want those dropout years to count, so you just start it at age 60. And again, we'll break down if that actually makes sense, but I think that's what skews the number back a bit. So the first thing we need to do is how much CPP are you actually going to collect? And PWL Capital put together a fantastic CPP calculator. We did a full video breakdown on this. We'll link this above, but I'm going to jump into it now. And I want to show an apples to apples scenario. So it's a 55-year-old person. If they stop paying into CPP today, what would they get? Or if they continue to work for 10 more years and collect at 65, what would they get? So what's the difference? And then I'm going to go back and take that age 55 number and plug it into the software at looking at different ages on when to take CPP. So a few layers to this, but it's all going to come together to help give you that knowledge you need on what's going to probably be the best decision for you going forward. So here we are in the PWL calculator. Again, we'll link this calculator below. It's the best one out there for CPP calculation. Again, you can put in, birth date, you can put QPP or CPP. I'm leaving it for CPP, but again, if you're qualifying under QPP, you can put that in here as well. Birth date, so again, this client is age 55, born January 1st, 1970. They're planning to retire in 10 years. So when I look at the contribution to benefit, You can see benefits are at age 65. They continue to pay in. Now, a few things that are obviously going to skew the numbers here are, what were their earnings? How much have they actually paid in? So what I did is you take the past income here. So I actually manually inputted this. You can copy it into an Excel spreadsheet, adjust it. You can get your real numbers. You can play around with it. It's a very intuitive tool. So all I did was basically grab an Excel spreadsheet, jam it in here, and then put in the summary that I want. So for the first, from age 18 to 25, I have it at, and you'll see here, 50%. Then from age 35, sorry, from 25 to 35, I have it at 75% of max. And then from then on, I have it at 100% of max. And you can see in the graph here, again, I've got these numbers, you can see it kind of, again, a percentage, 50% of max, it jumps up to 75%, and then 100% continuing to grow. And then as far as future earnings, because we're saying this is a 55-year-old working all the way till 65, and I'll show you why I'm showing you this here in a second, I just put $120,000. Again, I want to hit maximum amount of YMP for the next 10 years. So again, not necessarily how much income, but just that we're hitting the max YMPE. Now, when I click on CPP age comparison, you can click on benefit, present value, there's a few different options, but I want to look at the benefit. So at age 65, so if this person continued to work 10 more years, paying to the max, their amount at age 65 would be $1,666. So that would be, again, contributing all the way to 65. But what happens if they retired at 55 and didn't pay in anymore? What would their amount be down the road? So again, I left the same income. So past income, I have those same amounts in here. So apples to apples there. And then future income is zero. They've stopped paying into it. And you can see here the dropout years. When we go to the other scenario, you'll see the dropout years fall in those earlier years because we're paying in the max all the way up to 65. But when we change it, while the dropout years, because we've earned a little bit at least earlier, the dropout years are later. And again, there's a few years there that are counting towards zero. So when we go to the total amount that you'll see at age 65, $1,267. Again, if they continue to pay in, it would have been the $1,666. So there's your comparison and the difference between the two. So that's step one, figure out what your CPP, again, we'll link this calculator below, but go through that process. As far as past income, how do I know how much income I've had in the past? You can get access to your My Service Canada, log into there, it'll actually show you, it'll give you a CPP estimate. Again, I wouldn't trust that, get the data and put it into here. But within your My Service Canada, you can see all your year's previous income, copy it, paste it into here, run your numbers, figure out what your actual CPP numbers, and then you can give that to your financial planner to work with real raw data, which we're gonna do right now in the software. So here we're in Snap Projections, the software that we use, and you can see here 1970, January 1st, this is when the client's born. We have the client, again, retiring at age 55 and living until age 90, 2.5% inflation. And as far as assets go, we put an RSP of 700 and a TFSA of 150. Now, before you all jump in and make a comment like, who has that type of money at 55? My assumption is this person has no pensions at all. They just have savings that they've built up. So if they're going to retire at 55, and you'll see the amount of income they'll have here in a second, but if they're retiring early at 65 or at 55, I assume they've built up some assets to allow them to retire earlier, right? If they only had $100,000 or $200,000, they would continue to work. So I kind of need to make this as realistic as possible. And again, you'll see the income only sits around $4,000, $3,500 to $4,000 per month. So to get like a required income to retire here in Canada, we kind of need this amount of asset at 55 to even consider retiring. So again, that's why I've used this data and this asset base for this scenario. But again, we've kept it apples to apples through all the scenarios that I'll show you in the video today. Now, the most important part and why we're covering off in this video is CPP. So again, we can see we've started CPP in this scenario at age 60, and that CPP amount will be $10,032, which again, I've got from the PWL calculator here, $836 per month times 12 gives me my benefit amount at age 60. So I put that in here, I go to the planning, I hit generate, and we can see we can draw an income of $44,232 after tax in John's pocket until age 90. So again, taking CPP at 60, this is how it works out. Now, You can see on the right-hand side here, RSP, we're drawing down the TFSA. There's no tax planning and proper planning. I'll cover that later in this video, and again, an apples to apples comparison. I just want to see, like, where's the starting point? And that gives, as a financial planner, it gives me a really good starting point of where are we at? Like, probably what makes the most sense from a pure income, after-tax income in the client's pocket. The next scenario I want to look at is at age 65. So if we started CPP at 65, again, the number here is $1,267. So if we take that amount, multiply it by 12, we get $15,204. Now, here's the difference. You'll see the percentage of maximum is 78.53%. If I go back to CPP at age 60, you can see it's 85.73%. So if we took it at 60, we're actually getting a larger amount based on an age 65 number. And of course, that's because we have more years of non-contributory. So because we have 10 years of non-payment between 55 and 65, and we've decided to delay CPP till 65, we have more years where we're not contributing. So we're getting less percentage of the maximum amount, but we're getting a higher amount in dollar value because we haven't had that 36% reduction, again, 0.6% every month, by taking it earlier at 65. And this is where there's a lot of nuances to timing and how everything works. So yes, we have more years, zero income years, which hurt the amount that we'll receive, but we also get the bump because we've waited till age 65. So again, lots of different roads here and different maps. And this is why putting it into software, working with your planner to figure out what is the best solution for you. So here you can see if we were to delay the Canadian pension plan all the way till age 65, John would actually get $45,373 every year from age 55 onward, giving him over $1,000 a month more every single year in his pocket after tax. Like, that's a trip. That's a lot of money, especially when your income's only around 44,000. To add an extra 1,000 is a huge bump for him. And if we delay all the way till 70, you'll see the total CPP, 22,176. Again, that is taken from the CPP calculator here, 1,848 times 12, we get that number. And you can see it's 76.4% of the maximum at age 65. So when we look at that and we scale it out over the whole plan from age 55 to 90, you'll see another bump in income, $46,099. So close to $2,000 more every year from 55 to 90, not from 65 or 70 to 90, every single year in retirement. John's getting close to $2,000 more after tax, adjusted to inflation for the rest of his life by delaying that CPP till 70. Again, the first 15 years, he still has more income. He's using his own money. And so I'll show you here the estate effect, because a lot of you are writing now in the comments I can already hear, yeah, but he's burning down his own money, so the estate's going to be a lot less earlier on. So let's take a quick look at that. So here's a direct comparison, and I want to look at lifetime expenses. That's how much money John's collected. You can see at 70, it's $2.64 million versus at age 60, it's $2.53 million. So a lot of difference. Lifetime government benefits, under $1 million taking his government or CPP at 60. At 70, he's got almost $1.3 million. Again, this is till age 90. And the estate's going to be the same in all of them because he owns a home. And that's the reality of it. So the only thing left, because we're burning down all the money, we're taking more income in retirement. Now, what happens if I scale it back to, say, age 80? You can see here, still much more money collected. We have lifetime government benefits, goes from 530 all the way up to 620. Now the estate after tax, he would have more money in his estate. Again, my assumption is a client like this, because we deal with it a fair amount, is that he wants to maximize income in retirement. He's not too worried about the estate. So yes, the estate is worth a little bit more, about $70,000 more. He's also received more government benefits, but he's had more income. He's been able to enjoy. And I think that's where the difference is. For this scenario, John has almost $2,000 more after tax in his pocket to spend. He's not worried about $50,000 or $60,000, $70,000 in 30 years from now. He wants some money today to enjoy retirement. He's worked hard, and it's part of his plan to retire earlier. Again, everyone's situation is going to be much different. Again, I've tried to create a scenario for a single person here. If you look at a couple, it might be a little bit different. More assets, less assets. There's a lot of moving parts here. So again, your situation may be different. And that's why you need to plug it into software, work with your planner. But in this case, it makes a lot of sense to delay that CPP to get the maximum amount, to get that extra $2,000 almost every single year after tax adjusted to inflation, that's a no-brainer for John. And this is very similar to a client we just did. So I can tell you this is how clients think, and this is how you should be thinking as well. Now let's do a true apples to apples comparison. And this is taking CPP at 60 versus 70 for someone that retired at age 55. So this could be you sitting there saying, yeah, Adam, I'm retiring this year. I'm 55. I don't know if I should take my Canadian pension plan at 60 or 70. Like, what does this look like? So the very first thing I want to do is jump into the software and see, okay, this takes CPP at age 60, but there's the RSP meltdown. I'm keeping my TFSA intact, like a much better tax strategy. You can see we've emptied out the account early 80s is when the RIF is gone. We've kept the tax rate, the average tax rate or effective tax rate fairly level. 13, it goes down about 10 or 11 later on. So very level. And you can see if we do that, the maximum amount of income we can draw out of there is $44,131. So the income is pretty much the same as no tax planning here. The difference is the estate's gonna be a lot better. So again, much more movement. You have that TFSA, flexibility, all of that. So again, taking CPP at 60 didn't really change the income. We're just trying to create a better tax situation and a better apples to apples versus taking it at 70 with proper tax planning. So here's the same scenario. The only difference is we bumped CPP, as you can see, all the way till age 70. Now I've left the income the exact same because I want an apples to apples. So 44,131 after tax. I've melted down the RSP almost identical. Obviously it's a little bit different because we don't have those 10 years of CPP, so we need to draw more earlier. But the account is emptied out. Again, 82, 83, early 80s, the account's emptied out. TFSA stays intact over time. Now you'll see the difference. Same income, but at age 90, we still have almost $300,000 left in the TFSA account. Again, in the other scenario at CPP at 60, we've spent all the money. We have nothing left. So that's a huge difference between the two. Now, when we run a comparison between the two, you can see here, this is to age 90. I'll show you a younger age in a minute because I know you're all asking for it. But you can see on the left here, planning CPP at 70 versus CPP at 60. So the difference to age 90, government benefits, again, I've left the income the same. Government benefits, by delaying CPP till 70, you will collect $349,000 more from the government from CPP and OAS through your lifetime. Obviously that's CPP because OAS were taken at the same time. And you can see the estate's worth $2.18 million versus $1.88 million. So collecting more from the government, which we all want to do, plus it's left a very nice estate, all tax-free down the road. So a much better scenario. Now, what happens if you die early? Again, everyone's thinking, well, if I take CPP early, I'm not burning down my money. So let's just go back to age 80. Again, life expectancy, and I have a video coming up on this, it's later 80s, like typically even a single person, couple, probably one of you is going to live into your 90s. So if we look at this age 80, you can see, well, he still collected $90,000 more in government benefits. 621, taking CPP at 70 versus 530. So that's a huge difference. Again, that's a massive difference in that, look, if we pass away at age 80, if he took CPP at 60, he had 20 years of collecting versus only 10 years if he took it at 70. But taking it at 70, he's collected over $90,000 more of income. Like that's the delayed effect, collecting more at 70. Like that's a massive difference. You think, well, collecting CPP for 20 years, even though it's a smaller amount, is much better than 10 years. Now, a lot of you are gonna say, yeah, but Adam, for those 10 years, I've collected the money and I've invested it. Look, that's all in here. That's all built into here because we've taken that money, we've spent less of our own money, it's been invested, it's been grown over time. In fact, we've touched less of the RSP, meaning it's growing tax deferred, or we're touched less of the TFSA, again, tax-free, tax deferred. Now you can see here at age 80, the estate is almost exactly the same. Okay, so the same income. So 80 is kind of your break-even point. Now, if I go back to about age, let's go 77, see what that looks like. 24, I'm trying to find a break-even point for, so it's gonna be age 76. So your government benefit break-even point in this scenario, again, it's going to be different for you, so don't live off this. But at age 76, you'll see government benefit is pretty much the same. You've collected slightly more taking CPP at 70, but it's basically 6 years into taking it 70, that's your break-even point. So it's actually probably much different than a lot of you are thinking. Again, your situation is going to be a little bit different. You can see here, if you did pass away at 76, you have a better estate, obviously, taking CPP at age 60. But What are the chances you pass away at 76? I know you may feel like you're going to pass away at 76, but the reality is you're going to pass into your mid to late 80s is the likelihood of someone entering retirement here in Canada. So there you have it. There's the impact of retiring at 55 and looking at government benefit or your CPP at age 60 versus 70 or somewhere in between. Again, step one, take your data, your personal data, get it into the PWL CPP calculator to figure out what is your actual CPP going to look like, and then get that data and give it to your financial planner and map out exactly what I showed for you here. If you need help with that, reach out to our office. You can learn more at parallelwealth.com/planning. We offer fee-for-service planning. So what you see here is what we do for our clients. We take their CPP, we take all of the assets, and we figure out what is the best way forward. Again, some clients want to see a higher rate of return, different inflation rate, different life expectancy. That can all be adjusted. Again, what I've shown here is just a sample. We want to build a plan for you. What works for you? What are your goals? Again, we can run, what if you live till 90, but what happens if you pass away at 75? Or what happens if your spouse passes away? There's so many scenarios that we can look at, but we want to get what's the most likely plan going forward, getting you moving in the right direction, and making sure you make those small decisions. CPP, old age security, how to draw down your accounts, how to pay less taxes to CRA. These are all things that you're able to do in retirement that a lot of you are missing out on. So again, if you're looking to retire earlier, make sure you sit down with a financial planner. We'd love to help you out if you don't have a financial planner. Maybe you have one, they just don't do planning like this, which we hear all the time. So again, parallelwealth.com/planning. You can learn all about our services. There's a sample plan there, a whole bunch about what we have to offer to our clients, and we'd love to help you out. And to watch the full video on the PWL CPP calculator, watch this video here.